Good morning. Good morning. My name is Nicole and I am an alcoholic. Welcome to this 12 Steps to Freedom workshop, taking the 12 steps in 4 hours. This workshop is written by John A. from West Palm Beach, Florida, with the outline from the Back to Basics books by Wally P. If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. Albert Einstein. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 12 Steps to Freedom workshop, where we will go through the 12 steps in just 4 hours. Let's start with a moment of silence to reflect on what we're about to do here today, followed by the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. You could be any place else right now, but instead you're here with us. We're happy to have you here making this investment in your sobriety. You are making a huge deposit into your IRA, your individual recovery account, by being here and participating. Keep making these deposits, no matter how small, because one day you may have a situation that will require you to make a huge withdrawal, and you don't want your IRA to be depleted. We'll take a 10-minute break at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time so we can try to get this done by 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today. We will be mostly using the big book and 12 and 12 to go through the 12 steps, and we will be sharing our experience, strength, and hope with you on the 12 steps to help us all get a better understanding of the steps and how to apply them in your life or in our life. Page 15 of the 12 and 12. AA's 12 steps are a group of principles, spiritual in their nature, which if practiced as a way of life can expel the obsession to drink and enable the sufferer to become happily and usefully whole. Some of you might be thinking that it's impossible to go through the 12 steps in just 4 hours. It's not impossible. In fact, that's how they did it in the early days of AA. Big Book, page 263. It was Dr. Bob's afternoon off. He had me to the office and we spent 3 or 4 hours formally going through the 6-step program as it was at that time. The 6 steps were: 1, complete deflation; 2, dependence and guidance from a higher power; 3, moral inventory; 4, confession; 5, restitution; 6, continued work with other alcoholics. Dr. Bob led through all these steps. At the moral inventory, he brought up several of my bad personality traits or character defects such as selfishness, conceit, jealousy, carelessness, intolerance, ill temper, sarcasm, and resentments. We went over all of these at great length, and then he finally asked if I wanted these defects of character removed. When I said yes, we both knelt at his desk and prayed, each of us asking to have these defects taken away. There were only 6 steps at that time. Bill expanded them into 12 steps when he wrote the big book. But those 6 steps still encompassed all of the principles of the current 12 steps. A prospect couldn't attend an AA meeting until he had taken the steps. He didn't even know where the meetings were held at that time until someone sponsored him into the AA meeting. I'm not going to say that AA was more effective then as opposed to now, but I will say that people are dying needlessly because they are procrastinating and taking the 12 steps. Even if they are not dying, they are suffering longer than they need to. How soon do you want to be happy, joyous, and free? If your house was on fire, you would have a sense of urgency to get that fire out. If you had a life-threatening disease, you would have a sense of urgency in getting on the path of recovery. Freedom from the obsession of alcohol comes in taking the 12 steps. Your life is in danger. Have a sense of urgency in having the 12 steps become a way of your life sooner than later. That feeling of being happy, joyous, and free comes from taking the 12 steps. The steps help us work on our underlying issues behind alcoholism. If alcohol was the problem, most of us would be cured by now. Alcohol was but a symptom. Do you want to know how to get in a position of neutrality and get a great defense against that first sucker drink? It is through the 12 steps of AA. Quitting drinking is easy as pie. Anyone can quit drinking. Everyone in here quit drinking at some point in time prior to coming into AA. The problem is staying stopped. That's where AA and the 12 steps come into play. If alcohol was a problem, treatment centers would have a 99.9% success rate. You could go to jail for a weekend and stop drinking. Again, everyone in here has stopped drinking even before coming into AA, but they couldn't stay stopped. Even if it was for 1 hour, half a day, or perhaps a week, you had stopped, but didn't know how to stay stopped. In AA, we are able to stay stopped for 1 day at a time. By taking the 12 steps and practicing the principles behind the steps, we become someone who no longer needs to drink. The key to staying stopped is to not pick up the first drink. We're all 1 drink away from a drunk. The goal for today is to get you 12 plus steps away from that first sucker drink. If you stay for the whole workshop, you'll have taken all the steps except steps 4, 5, 8, and 9. You will get a cursory knowledge of those steps, but you will need to get someone to help you with those steps. You can be on step 9 within a few days. I'd like everyone to stand up with their big book in their hand. Please stand now, drop or put the big book on the floor. Please remain standing till we finish reading the following.
Nicole,
Yes.
do it 1 step at a time. Everyone, please stand up.
Please stand up. Is everyone standing? Okay, now drop your big book on the floor. Okay, big book, page 25. There is a solution. Almost none of us like the self-searching, the leveling of our pride, the confession of shortcomings, which the process requires for its successful consumption. But we saw that it really worked in others, and we had come to believe in the hopelessness and futility of life as we had been living it. When therefore we were approached by those in whom the problem had been solved, there was nothing left for us but to pick up the simple kit, the spiritual tools laid at our feet. We have found much of heaven, and we have been rocketed into a 4th dimension of existence of which we had not even dreamed. Please pick up your big book, which contains the simple kit, the spiritual tools laid at our feet, and sit down. Before going any further, I have a few questions I'd like to ask each person here to answer. Are you willing to go to any lengths to get sober and stay sober? Yes or no? And we'll unmute everyone. Are you willing to go to any lengths and get sober and stay sober? Yes or no?
Yes.
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 And the second question, do you want to be happy, joyous, and free? Yes or no?
Yes.
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 Excellent. Hooray, you've decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it. And you are ready to take certain steps. Step 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Big book, page 24. The fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice and drink. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. We are unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. We are without defense against that first drink. Split the step into two parts. Look at step 1 as 1, admitting that you are powerless over alcohol, and 2, that your life has become unmanageable. Focus on the first part until you are comfortable in saying that you are powerless over alcohol, and believe it when you say it. Then take the time to look at your life, your experiences with an aerial view, so that you can see the big picture of how unmanageable it was. There is absolutely no action taken on steps 1, 2, or 3. There's nothing to write until you get to step 4. You may choose to do some writing if you want to, or if a sponsor suggests that you do. There are even workshops on the internet for steps 1, 2, and 3. We learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholics. This is the first step in recovery, Big Book, page 30. We perceive that only through utter defeat are we able to take our first steps towards liberation and strength. Our admission of personal powerlessness finally turned out to be firm bedrock upon which happy and purposeful lives may be built. 12 and 12, page 21. The doctor's opinion will show you how you were powerless over alcohol and also why you drank if you're an alcoholic. Men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. The sensation is so elusive that while they admit it is injurious, they cannot, after a time, differentiate the true from the false. To them, their alcoholic life seems like only normal one. They're restless, irritable, and discontented, unless they can again experience a sense of ease and comfort, which comes at once by taking a few drinks. Drinks which they see others taking with impunity. After they have succumbed to the desire again, as so many do, and the phenomenon of craving develops, they pass through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorsefully with a firm resolution not to drink again. This is repeated over and over, and unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope for his recovery. You don't crave alcohol until you've had that first drink. Prior to that, it's an obsession of the mind. What are some myths about this step? Powerless means you're weak. Admitting powerlessness is a crucial step on the pathway to independence and strength. It requires honesty and courage to accept that alcohol and or drugs have taken over your life. You have to hit rock bottom before you're able to find support. It doesn't require a major life event to open your eyes to your alcoholism or a developing alcoholism. Sometimes all it requires is a realization that alcohol is causing you more pain than the pain you aim to escape from. Even if you're a high-ranking member of the Not Yet Club and had not yet been arrested, gotten a DUI, lost a job, lost my family, etc., your life could still be unmanageable. You do not have to ride the elevator to the bottom. You can get off at any floor. You hit bottom when you stop digging. You got reservations about being an alcoholic? Think about the various ways your life was unmanageable. Experiencing health problems like high blood pressure, insomnia, or ulcers. Having feelings of guilt, despair, hopelessness, depression, anxiety, self-hate, or thoughts of suicide. Having poor performance at work or school, leading to loss of employment or poor grades. Losing parental rights, getting a divorce, or having a serious relational problems with friends and family. Experiencing legal issues, financial problems, or incarceration. Have I compared my alcoholism with other people's alcoholism? What does unmanageability mean to me? What troubles have been caused because of my addiction to alcohol? Have I used alcohol or drugs to change or suppress my feelings? Are you in denial? What reservations am I still holding on to? Do I accept that I'll never again control over drinking even after a long period without use? What could my life be like if I surrendered completely? Am I willing to follow directions, go to meetings regularly, and give recovery my best effort? Have I made peace with the fact that I am an alcoholic and that I'll have to do things to stay sober? Is AA for you? 12 questions only you can answer. In boxing, a fighter loses when his corner throws in the towel and quits. In AA, we win when we throw in the towel and quit or surrender. Prior to AA and the 12 steps, we were totally powerless over that first sucker drink. And once we took that first drink, we were powerless to stop until we got that buzz. Doesn't matter how long you drank or how much you drank. We thought alcohol was the solution. Before we came into AA, alcohol was a temporary solution. Through Alcoholics Anonymous, you can find a permanent solution and a true higher power. Before coming into AA and taking the 12 steps, we are totally powerless over that first sucker drink. And once we took that first drink, we were powerless to stop until we got the buzz. Many people take steps 1 and 2 prior to joining AA. Why would they go to a meeting or continue going to AA meetings if they didn't think they were powerless over alcohol and their lives were somewhat unmanageable? Alcoholics would not continue coming to AA if they didn't feel AA could help restore their sanity or do something for them. Why continue to fight and get overrun by sheer force when you can negotiate a conditional surrender? Unfortunately, when we come to AA, we do not have the luxury of negotiating any type of conditional surrender. Our surrender must be unconditional, one without reservations whatsoever. Nobody surrenders to die, you surrender to live. Again, sad to say that we do not reach that mindset until we are thoroughly defeated. Then and only then do we allow a power greater than ourselves to come in and help us rebuild and perhaps emerge better than before. Each person's story is uniquely their own. It's best not to compare your story to anyone else's. Don't compare, relate, identify. You don't have to go back out to create a sexier, more exciting story because you think yours is boring. Become committed to your sobriety and not just involved. Once the obsession has been relieved, we are no longer powerless over alcohol. I can't give you a time frame, but through taking the steps, you will be placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. You will no longer be powerless over people, places, and things, more powerful over alcohol. Notice that the steps reads, we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. However you interpret the 12 steps is up to you, and perhaps you and your sponsor. Are you ready to concede to your innermost self that you are an alcoholic? Yes or no? And we'll open up the... Are you ready to concede?
Yes.
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 To your
Yes.
innermost self
Yes.
that you are an alcoholic?
Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you have any reservations whatsoever about being an alcoholic? Yes or no?
No.
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 No. No.
No.
Not
No.
at all.
I know what I am. No.
Yep. I am a real alcoholic.
Me too.
If you have conceded that you're an alcoholic and have no reservations about being an alcoholic, then you have just taken step 1. Yay.
Yay.
That's
Yeah.
what's up. That's what's up.
That's what's
That's
up.
what's up.
Yes.
Powerless and my life is unmanageable.
That's right.
And I know it.
Right.
And now we're on to step 2. Step 2 came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Some members of AA will immediately bring up God when the subject of step 2 comes up. Step 2 isn't about believing or not believing in a God. We don't have to immediately start talking about God when the step comes up. The newcomer can be spoon-fed the God talk. Step 2 talks about coming to believe in a power greater than yourself. That power can be anything you choose. 12 and 12, page 26. First, Alcoholics Anonymous does not demand that you believe anything. All of its 12 steps are but suggestions. Second, to get sober and to stay sober, you don't have to swallow all of the step 2 right now. Looking back, I find that I took it piecemeal myself. Third, all you really need is a truly open mind. Just resign from the debating society and quit bothering yourself with such deep questions as whether it was the hen or the egg that came first. Again, I say, all you need is an open mind. There is nothing to write in steps 1, 2, or 3. It's up to you if you want to do some writing with these 3 steps. But the big book doesn't mention writing until we get to step 4. The actions start with step 4. Big book, page 46. We found that as soon as we were able to lay beside prejudice and express even a willingness to believe in a power greater than ourselves, we commenced to get results. Even though it was impossible for any of us to fully define or comprehend that power, which is God. Big book, page 46. Much to our relief, we discovered we did not need to consider another's conception of God. Our own conception, however inadequate, was sufficient to make the approach and to effect a contact with him. As soon as we admitted the possible existence of a creative intelligence, a spirit of the universe underlying the totality of things, we began to be possessed of a new sense of power and direction. Provided we took other simple steps, we found that God does not make too hard terms with those who seek him. Big Book, page 47. When therefore we speak to you of God, we mean your own conception of God. This applies to other spiritual expressions which you find in this book. Do not let any prejudice you may have against spiritual terms deter you from honestly asking yourself what they mean to you. In Big Book, page 45, lack of power, that was our dilemma. We had to find a power which we could live, and it had to be a power greater than ourselves. Big Book, page 55. Deep down in every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. It may be obscured by calamity, by pomp, by worship, or other things, but in some form or other, it is there. For faith in a power greater than ourselves and the miraculous demonstrations of that power in human lives are facts as old as man himself. Big Book, page 47. We needed to ask ourselves but one short question. Do I now believe? Or am I willing to believe that there is a power greater than myself? As soon as a man can say that he does believe, or he's willing to believe, we emphatically assure him that he is on his way. It has been repeatedly proven among us that upon this simple cornerstone, a wonderfully effective spiritual structure can be built. Most people come into AA on the third step. Please don't waste time overthinking this thing. This way of living. You can surrender to alcoholism and die drinking, or you can surrender to your higher power in AA and be happy, joyous, and free. Lack of power was our dilemma, but we can tap into a power greater than ourselves that will remove obsession to drink and give us a design for living. Do you believe, or are you willing to believe that there is a power greater than yourself? That power can be anything at all, yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yay.
Come
And
on,
now
let's
on
hear
to
some enthusiasm.
I know, it's like, hello.
Yes.
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 Some
I
conviction.
believe
Say
I'm
it
a
like
little
you
emotional.
say it like you mean it.
Yes.
That's right.
I'm just
Absolutely.
trying not to
Yes.
cry. Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
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 Power
Ready to live.
greater than myself. I
We are
definitely
ready to
believe that.
live.
I
Yes.
believe that.
yes. Okay, now Patrice is going to take us into step 3. Patrice.
Built to help you protect the environment.
There's Patrice.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you guys share it in the chat again so I can pull the link up? Because I had to log out and log back in. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well done.
And y'all can hear me okay?
It's in the chat, yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you good.
All right. All right. Good morning. My name is Patrice and I'm an alcoholic. And I will be starting with step 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And C, that God could and would if he were sought. The ABCs of the AA program sum up steps 1 and 2. Step 1, if you are convinced that you are an alcoholic and that your life was unmanageable without any reservations. Step 2, if you are convinced that a power greater than yourself can help you. There is nothing to write in steps 1, 2, or 3. It's up to you if you want to do some writing with these 3 steps, but the big book doesn't mention writing until we get to step 4. The actions start with step 4. On Big Book, page 60, it says, being convinced. We were at step 3, which is that we decided to turn our will and our life over to God as we understood him. Just what do we mean by that? and just what do we do? On page 60 of the big book, it says, the first requirement is that we be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. On that basis, we are almost always in collision with something or somebody, even though our motives are good. Most people try to live by self-propulsion. Each person is like an actor who wants to run the whole show. Is forever trying to arrange the lights, the ballet, the scenery, and the rest of the players in his own way. On the 12 and 12, page 34, it says, practicing step 3 is like the opening of a door, which to all appearances is still closed and locked. All we need is a key and the decision to swing the door open. There is only one key, and it is called willingness. Once unlocked by willingness, the door opens almost of itself. And looking through it, we shall see a pathway beside, which is an inscription. It reads, this is the way to a faith that works. In the first 2 steps, we were engaged in reflection. We saw that we were powerless over alcohol, but we also perceived that faith of some kind, if only in AA itself, is possible to anyone. These conclusions did not require action. They required only acceptance. The key word in step 3 is decision. There is absolutely no action taken, nor is any type of action necessary for completion of step 3. The actions come in the subsequent steps. If 2 birds are on a power line and one of them decides to fly off, how many are left? You still have 2 left on the power line. After making the decision to turn our will, that's our thoughts, and our lives, that's our actions, to the care of God, absolutely nothing happens until and unless it is followed by action. Steps 1, 2, and 3 pave the way for the willingness to come to make the decision to turn our will and our lives over, to change our thoughts and actions. Steps 4 through 9 show us how to make the change happen, as well as removing the character defects that prevent us from doing it. Steps 10, 11, and 12 help us keep our will and our lives in his care. Another key word in step 3 is care. You're not turning your will and life over to God. You are turning them over to his care. We have free will to do whatever we want. The longer you are sober, you will find that the things you want to do have changed. The path will get narrow. You will do the right thing in life because you want to. You may not always know what the right thing to do is in a situation, but you always know what the wrong thing to do. What is the wrong thing to do? In the 12 and 12 on page 34 and 35, it says, like all the remaining steps, step 3 calls for affirmative action. For it is only by action that we can cut away the self-will, which has always blocked the entry of God, or if you like, a higher power into our lives. Faith, to be sure, is necessary, but faith alone can avail nothing. We can have faith, yet keep God out of our lives. Therefore, our problem now becomes just how and by what specific means shall we be able to let him in. Step 3 represents our first attempt to do this. In fact, the effectiveness of the whole AA program will rest upon how well and earnestly we have tried to come to a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. Big Book, page 62. First of all, we had to quit playing God. It didn't work. Next, we decided that hereafter in this drama of life, God was going to be our director. He is the principal. We are his agents. He is the father, and we are his children. Most good ideas are simple, and this concept was the keystone of the new and triumphant arch through which we passed to freedom. Big Book, page 63. We were now at step 3. Many of us said to our Maker as we understood him, God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help, of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. We thought well before taking this step, making sure we were ready, that we could at last abandon ourselves utterly to Him. Many call this the third step prayer. Big Book, page 63. We found it very desirable to take this spiritual step with an understanding person, such as our wife, best friend, or spiritual advisor. But it is better to meet God alone than with one who might misunderstand. The wording was, of course, quite optional, so long as we expressed the idea, voicing it without reservation. This was only a beginning, though if honestly and humbly made, an effect, sometimes a great one, was felt at once. Don't let the God word stop you from taking this step. Your God or higher power can be whoever or whatever you want. You can customize your God to your specifications. Some AA members say they do steps 1, 2, and 3 every day. Some say they surrender every day. Others say they've only done steps 1, 2, and 3 once, and they are no longer in a state of surrender. Some members say they are still powerless over alcohol, even after years of sobriety. Others say they are no longer powerless. They are in a position of neutrality. Step 3 is about the God of your understanding. Do not get hung up on the God word. God can stand for group of drunks, grow or die, greatest of daddies, or anything you want. You don't even have to use the God word. Just call it your HP, higher power. You can have your own conception of God and not that of your parents. You don't need to keep the God you grew up with. You can now customize your God just as you would customize a computer to your specifications. AA will help you plug into the power of your God. The room you're in is full of power outlets, but if you don't plug in, you won't get the power. The third step helps you find the power outlet and plug in. The rest of the steps clear the path to the power as well as staying plugged into the power source. Interdependence. You will get more independence by being dependent on your higher power. For most people, this meeting, alcohol was their God, their higher power, or HP. Alcohol was their crutch in life. Alcohol, however, was a temporary solution. You now have a long-term permanent solution in AA and your higher power. You can lean on them for support and strength. In step 3, you will begin to see how your higher power was looking out over you your whole life. Don't see how your higher power was with you your whole life? Think about the times that you should have died. Think about the times that you should have been arrested. Think about the times something horrible happened, should have happened, but it didn't go as badly as it should have or could have been. That was your higher power looking out for you. You will begin to see that everything happens in your life for a reason, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. It's okay to have faith and fear simultaneously. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is having fear, but going forward anyway. You don't even have to believe in God. Again, your HP can be anything you want. You can even be an atheist and still get sober and become happy, joyous, and free. The bottom line is that AA works if you believe in God. It works if you don't believe in God. The only way it will not work is if you think you are God. Are you ready to turn your will and your life over to the care of God, to the God of your understanding? Yes or no?
Yes. Yes.
All right.
Yes,
And
yes,
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
all right.
Yes.
Well, are you ready to do the right thing in your life from now on, one day at a time? Yes or no?
Yes.
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 yes, yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
definitely.
Yes. Yes. Most
Yeah, for
definitely.
sure. If you
Yes.
answered yes, let's say the third step prayer together. God, I offer
I offer
myself to
myself
thee
to
Thee,
thee
To
to
do
Do
with
deal
do
you
with
with
me
me
and
to
to
and
do
do
with
with
to
me
me
do
as
as
thou
as
thou
wilt.
wilt.
thou
thou
wilt.
wilt.
Relieve me
Relieve me of the
Of the
bondage of
bondage of
self,
self
self,
that
that
I
that
I
may
may
better
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 do
do
thy
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 will.
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 Take
Take
away
Take
away
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 my
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 difficulties,
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 the
that
victory
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 over
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 them
them
them.
may bear
May
may
witness to
bear
bear
those
witness
witness
to those I
to
would
I would
help
those
help
of thy
of thy
power,
power,
thy love,
love,
and thy
and
way
thy
of
and
thy
way
life.
of
way
way
of
life.
of
life.
life. May I
May
do
I
May
thy
I
will
do
do thy will
always,
always.
always, always.
Amen.
well. Congratulations. If you have answered yes to the question, then you have just taken step 3.
Hey,
Whoop, 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 whoop. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. That's Big Book page 58. Are you still willing to go to any lengths? If so, let's move on. So now we'll move on to step 4. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. So how soon should you start step 4 after you've done step 3? Well, let's see what the founding fathers of AA had to say on that topic. On Big Book page 63 and 64, it states, next, we launched out on a course of vigorous action, the first step of which is a personal house cleaning, which many of us had never attempted. Though our decision was a vital and crucial step, it could have little permanent effect unless at once followed by a strenuous effort to face and to be rid of the things in ourselves which had been blocking us. Our liquor was but a symptom, so we had to get down to causes and conditions. This means you start step 4 immediately after doing step 3. Why do we need to do step 4? You won't know what to fix if you don't know what's broken. You won't know what it is about you that needs to be changed. And you won't know what your assets and liabilities are if you don't take this inventory. Big Book pages 63 to 64. A business which takes no regular inventory usually goes broke. Taking commercial inventory is a fact-finding and a fact-facing process. It is an effort to discover the truth about the stock in trade. One object is to disclose damaged or unsaleable goods, to get rid of them promptly and without regret. If the owner of the business is to be successful, he cannot fool himself about values. We did this exact same thing with our lives. We took stock honestly. First, we searched out the flaws in our makeup, which caused our failure. Being convinced that self manifested in various ways was what had defeated us, we considered its common manifestations. Steps 4 and 5 will help you uncover, discover, and then discard troubling facts from the past. The past will no longer have power over you. You will learn your part in many situations from your past. The bottom line is to no longer be a victim of the incidents of the past. There is nothing wrong with seeking outside help if that's required. 12 and 12, page 42. Nearly every serious emotional problem can be seen as a case of misdirected instinct. When that happens, our great natural assets, the instincts, have turned into physical and mental liabilities. Step 4 is our vigorous and painstaking effort to discover what these liabilities in each of us have been and are. There is no right or wrong way to do a 4th step. Just do it. Don't waste precious time trying to do a perfect 4th step. There are various step 4 worksheets available online. The Big Book suggests that we write out the 4th step. You shouldn't type it out and email it to your sponsor. Big Book page 64. We set them on paper. We listed people. Big Book's page 65. On our grudge list, we set opposite each name our injuries. Was it our self-esteem, our security, our ambitions, our personal or sex relations, which had been interfered with? If you keep the 4th step simple, you can complete it in a few hours. You don't have to go back to kindergarten, and you don't have to dig that deep to find your resentments. Down things that keep you up at night, or the stuff that you think about as soon as you wake up. It's not the things that you don't remember to write in your fourth step that will take you out. It's the things that you do remember, but don't write down that may take you out. Big book, page 65. We went back through our lives. Nothing counted but thoroughness and honesty. You'll never be done with these steps. If you forget anything in this or any other step, you can do it in step 10. Remember, the fourth step is just notes for when you do your fifth step. The fourth step is the beginning of the process to help us have that profound personality change, which enables us to become someone who doesn't need to drink anymore. As I've stated, this is not an easy step to do. Who the heck wants to peel away layers upon layers of negative, bad, terrible, horrible things about themselves? Nobody wants to do this, but we must do it if we are to change. The fourth step goes against every self-preservation fiber of our being, but we must do it if we are to change. We must do it if we want to survive. If you trust the process, great things will happen. Clancy I, out in California, tells a great story about early aviation. There are 4 inventories we should be writing as part of the fourth step: resentments, fears, sex, and harms to others. I think it's a longer path if you do the fourth step in the form of a life story. The fourth step should mainly be notes and short phrases that will help you when you do the fifth step. However, there is no right or wrong way to do this step. Just do it. Do you know how long it takes some people to do a fourth step? 5 months worrying and thinking about it, and a half day to do it. Number 1, resentments. List any thoughts, experiences, memories, ideas, beliefs, or observations from your entire life that currently cause you negative emotional or mental experiences. This does not necessarily include the negative mental or emotional impulses that cause you to drink, but the thoughts you harbor that cause detrimental emotional or mental experiences from the past to the present. Usually resentments are oriented toward a person, object, place, or thing. And in this sense, having a specific list via pen and paper is essential for listing these items. Don't forget that part of this process includes taking an honest look at resentments towards yourself, as well as resentments or reservations that you may have about things relevant to the program, such as the program itself or a higher power. Fears. Listing your fears may look like an endless task. However, you may be amazed at how they seem to dissipate the moment you jot them down. Of course, there are some fears that are not as easily removed or even identifiable, but that is why you have a sponsor to help you in the process. Some helpful thoughts when considering your fears include asking yourself, what do I fear today? Then move forwards and backwards and ask yourself, what do I fear from the past? And what do I fear about the future? All right. Number 3, sexual conduct and harm done to others. Depending on your temperament, this section can prove somewhat unnerving. However, experience has shown that sexual conduct is intimately linked to our views of ourselves and our views of others. In this sense, a thorough exploration of our sexual conduct in the past, especially as it relates to exposing character flaws or blemishes in us, is essential. Many program members suffer from long-standing and repressed resentments, shame, and insecurity due to prior sexual experiences, which lingers for years below the surface. The fourth step is all about bringing these lingering fears, worries, shames, and elements of anger to the surface for an honest examination. The goal of ridding ourselves of these harmful pieces of our emotional and mental lives makes this process very worthwhile indeed. The biggest challenge for those engaging in a first fourth step is relinquishing the notion of righteous anger, justifications for their harmful actions, or rationalizations that minimize the harms caused. What we desire above all is honesty, thoroughness, and a completely critical look at ourselves, which refuses to excuse the harms that we may have caused to ourselves or others. The fourth step is the beginning of the healing process. This is also where we start working on the underlying conditions behind our alcoholism. After a while, the past will not have the power over you that it did previously. You will start feeling happy, joyous, and free. Freedom from the past. You will start forgiving yourself and others. You will start seeing things as they really are and not how you perceive them. Big Book, page 70. Suppose we fall short of the chosen ideal and stumble. Does this mean we are going to get drunk? Some people tell us so, but this is only a half truth. It depends on us and on our motives. If we are sorry for what we have done and have the honest desire to let God take us to better things, we believe we will be forgiven and will have learned our lesson. If we are not sorry and our conduct continues to harm others, we are quite sure to drink. We are not theorizing. These are facts out of our experience. We are going to look at a short list of character defects and ask you if you identify with any or all of them. Resentment, anger, fear, cowardice, self-pity, self-justification, self-importance, egotism, self-condemnation, guilt, lying, evasiveness, dishonesty, impatience, hate, false pride, phoniness, denial, jealousy, envy, laziness, procrastination, insincerity, negative thinking, immoral thinking, perfectionism, intolerance, criticizing, loose talk, gossip, greed. These character defects boil down to selfishness, self-centeredness, dishonesty, and fear that cause resentments. We all know that resentments are our number one offender and kill more alcoholics than anything else. There is no right or wrong way to do a fourth step. Just do it. And now we will move on to step 5. And I'm not sure who the person is.
That that will be me. Good morning, family. My name is Jonathan, and I'm an alcoholic. Step 5, we admit it to God, to ourselves, and to another human being, the exact nature of our wrongs. Big Book, page 72. Having made our personal inventory, what shall we do about it? We have been trying to get a new attitude and a new relationship with our Creator, and to discover the obstacles in our path. We have admitted certain defects. We have ascertained in a rough way what the trouble is. We have put our finger on the weak items in our personal inventory. Now, these are about to be cast out. This requires action on our part, which when completed will mean that we have admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our defects. This brings us to the 5th step in the program of recovery, mentioned in the preceding chapter. Why is it so important to do a 5th step with someone else? Well, you decide for yourself in the Big Book, page 72. if we skip this vital step, we may not overcome drinking. Time after time, newcomers have tried to keep to themselves certain facts about their lives, trying to avoid this humbling experience. They have turned to easier methods. Almost invariably, they got drunk. Having preserved with the rest of the program, they wondered why they fell. We think the reason is they never completed their house cleaning. They took inventory, all right, but hung on to the worst items in stock. They only thought they lost their egotism and fear. They only thought they had humbled themselves. But they did not learn enough of humility, fearlessness, and honesty in the sense we find it necessary. Until they told someone all their life story, we are as sick as our deepest, darkest secrets. Make your life an open book. The AA 12 steps are fashioned in such a manner as to bring about a profound personality change, which will lead to the drink problem being removed for us. Alcohol was not the problem. It never was the problem. Once alcohol has been removed from the equation, we must deal with the real problem, ourselves and our character defects, and become a person who no longer needs to drink. The fourth step was the beginning of that process to allow us to change. The fifth and subsequent steps continue in helping us in this change process. Why does the fifth step work? It is something new. It is something new that AA stumbled, It is not something new that AA stumbled upon. Not really. The concept of fifth step has been in use for centuries. Confession of our sins is something that many religions employ. It's probably true that women live longer than men because of kitchen table psychology. Many women will tell another everything that goes on in their life and will seek counsel from her friend or friends at different times. This is the same method AA uses to help us to make our lives an open book. Some benefits of doing a fifth step. I'm not unique. I'm not alone. I get freedom from the past. I get freedom from fears of being found out. I learn forgiveness of myself and others. We begin to see things the way that they are and not as we perceived them in the past. We gain peace of mind and serenity and true humility. In the big book, page 75, we pocket our pride and go to it, illuminating every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past. Once we have taken this step, withholding nothing, we are delighted. We can look at the world in the eye. We can be alone in perfect peace and ease. Our fears fall from us. We begin to feel a nearness of our Creator. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. We feel that we are on a broad highway, walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe. A word of caution: be careful with whom you do your fifth step, because there is no legal privilege implied or otherwise unless you do it with a lawyer or a priest. Even then, there are certain crimes that a person is obligated to report if you tell them. However, the AA program is all about growing and accepting responsibility for our actions. In the words of Dr. Bob, his prescription was and still is trust God, clean house, and help others. In the 12 and 12, page 61, our next problem will be to discover the person in whom we are to confide. Here, we ought to take much care, remembering that prudence is a virtue which carries a high rating. Perhaps we shall need to share with this person facts about ourselves which no other ought to know. We shall want to speak with someone who is experienced, who not only has stayed dry, but has been able to surmount other serious difficulties. In the big book, page 74, rightly and naturally, we think well before we choose this person or persons with whom to take this intimate and confidential step. Those of us that belong to religious dominations which requires confession must, and of course, will want to go to the properly appointed authorities whose duty it is to receive it. Though we have no religious connection, we still may do well to talk to someone ordained by an established religion. We often find such a person quick to see and understand our problem. Of course, we sometimes encounter people who do not understand alcohol. If we cannot or would rather not do this, we search our acquaintances for a closed-mouth understanding friend. Perhaps our doctor or psychologist will be the person. It may be one of our own family, but we cannot disclose anything to our wives or parents which will hurt them and make them unhappy. We have no right to save our own skin at the expense of others. Here are some fifth step questions and the answers. How do I do my fifth step? It doesn't matter whether it's on Zoom or in person or on the phone. If I relapse on step 4 or 5, on what step should I start again? You should start on the same step, but go back to step 1 and make sure you did not have reservations. How long should I wait to do my 5th step upon completion of my 4th step? You can start to do your 5th step the same day or immediately. I'm ready to do my 4th step and get on with the rest of the program and the steps, but my sponsor wants me to wait. What should I do? Get another sponsor. Does it matter who I choose to do my 5th step with? Try to find someone you can trust. You can do it with someone such as your sponsor, a priest, a counselor, or a therapist. How long should my 5th step last? It takes as long as it takes. There is no certain time limit, and it doesn't matter. Just do it. What is my part if I am a victim of abuse as a child? You are 100% innocent. You were totally a victim. Your part now is to not be a victim mentally anymore. Do not let the past have power over you anymore. And if necessary, get outside help and start helping others through your experience. Should men listen to a woman's 5th step or vice versa? It doesn't matter. It's just a suggestion that men with the men and women with the women. Our predecessor, Dr. Bob, sponsored men and women and took either through the steps. How often should I do my 4th or 5th step? Well, that's totally up to you. Let's move on to step 6. Thank you for allowing me to be of service. Who's doing step 6? Go ahead, Chavez.
I unmuted you, Shivas.
Hello, everybody. Shivas Alcoholic. All right. Step 6. We're entirely ready to have God remove all of these defects of character. In the 12 and 12 on page 46, we don't just focus on the bad character traits because there is some good in bad in all of us. The sponsor probably points out that the newcomer has some assets which can be noted along with his liabilities. This tends to clear away morbidity and encourage balance. As soon as he begins to be more objective, the newcomer can fearlessly, rather than fearfully, look at his own defects. There is no difference between a character defect and a shortcoming. Bill Wilson was asked why he chose different words in those 2 steps, and he said that he just didn't want to end the sentences with the same words. In the 12 and 12 on page 63, this is the step that separates the men from the boys. In the big book, page 64, our liquor was but a symptom, so we had to get down to causes and conditions. We have emphasized willingness as becoming indispensable. Are we now ready to let God remove from us all the things which we have admitted are objectionable? Can he now take them all, every one? If we still cling to something, we will not let go. We ask God to help us be willing. On Big Book, page 76. A very few examples of character defects or shortcomings and their opposites. So selfish, unselfish, giving, sharing, dishonest, honest, resentful, forgiving, afraid, fear, and faith. Arrogant, humble, egotistical, egoism, or modest, cocky, or mild, envy, grateful, sloth, hardworking, industrious, gluttony, sharing, impatient, patient, vengeful, loving, hurtful, kind, sarcastic, complimentary, and intolerant to tolerant. There are 2 links for character defects that you can look at anytime you want. Character defects and their opposites, AA principles and the 7 deadly sins, which I will post in the chat right here. And a more extensive list of flaws and assets, which I will post right here. In the 12 and 12 on page 65, so step 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Is AA's way of stating the best possible attitude one can take in order to make a beginning on this lifetime job. This does not mean that we expect all our character defects to be lifted out of us as the drive to drink was. A few of them may be, but the most of them we shall have to be content with patient improvement. The key words, entirely ready, underline the fact that we want to aim at the very best we know or can learn. Do you acknowledge that you have the character defects that you need to work on? Yes or no? Are you ready to start working on your character defects with the help of your higher power? Yes or no? And now we proceed to step 7. I believe it's Nathan.
Yeah,
Yes, hi,
Nathan.
everyone. Hello, my name is Nathan and I'm an alcoholic.
Well, hold on a minute. Shivas, read step 6 and 7 again. The questions. Yes or no? Unmute yourself, guys. Are you answer yes or no?
Yes, yes, yes. I want these. I'm willing.
No, let
Yes.
Shivas read them again.
Yeah.
Yes.
Read them.
Yes, most definitely.
Do you acknowledge that you have character defects that you need to work on? Yes or no?
Yes.
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 Definitely.
Yes, definitely. I'm crazy.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, yes, yes.
Heck yeah, heck yeah.
Hey,
Ah,
Bill.
Oh, I know you do, Adam. I know you do.
I feel like I'm a steal.
I know I'm nuts. I'm trying to figure it out though. I'm trying to get there.
There's
You
four
know.
fingers pointing back.
Go ahead, Jeebus. What's the other one?
Are you ready to start working on your character defects with the help of your higher power? Yes.
Yes.
The help of my
Yeah.
higher
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
the help of my
Yes.
higher power. With the help of my higher power, yes.
All right. All right. Thank you for that, John. Now we proceed to step 7, which I believe is Nathan.
Yes.
All right. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, you're good.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Nathan and I'm an alcoholic. Step 7. Humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings. Humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. C.S. Lewis. 12 and 12, page 70. Since this step so specifically concerns itself with humility, we should pause here to consider what humility is and what the practice of it can mean to us. 12 and 12, page 76. The 7th step is where we make the change in our attitude which permits us, with humility as our guide, to move out from ourselves towards others and towards God. The whole emphasis of step 7 is on humility. It is really saying to us that we now ought to be willing to try humility in seeking the removal of our shortcomings, just as we did when we admitted that we were powerless over alcohol and came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Without God, I can't. Without me, He won't. God will not remove a single defect from us without us taking some action. He will help us help ourselves if we are willing and humble enough and if we take action. You can't continue to curse and expect God to snap his fingers and make you stop cursing. You must make a conscious effort to stop cursing, and your higher power will help you. You can't pray for a job and expect to get one if you don't take some action and fill out job applications. You can pray all you want to win the lottery, but nothing will happen if you don't buy a ticket. Without God, I can't. Without me, He won't. Faith without works is dead. 7th step prayer, Big Book, page 76. When ready, we say something like this: My Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. We have then completed step 7. We never complete steps 6 and 7. The Big Book doesn't say we have completed any of the other steps. If alcohol is not the problem, then our character defects are not the root cause of our problems, and something we need to work on for the rest of our lives. We live in steps 6 and 7 along with steps 10, 11, and 12. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. Alcoholics Anonymous, page 58. Are you still willing to go any lengths? If so, let's move on. And move on to step 8.
Do we want to
Willing to
unmute?
go to any
Yeah,
lengths?
yeah, we want to unmute.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Nathan, ask the
Yes.
question again.
All right. Are you still willing to go to any lengths?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Hell yeah.
If so, let's move on.
Okay, we got Laura.
Yeah,
Thanks,
yeah,
Nathan.
one sec. I have been following it, but it went off when I had to unmute myself.
That's okay.